going to go to Noah Bierman from the LA Times.
How are you? Thank you.
Great.
It's sort of a two-part question, but they're related, I promise. One is I was hoping you could sort of trace the deterioration of what relationship you had with the Trump administration that led up to your resignation from the Manufacturing Council. And two, to discuss whether it was ever possible for Trump to truly realign the political parties at the beginning by, putting pressure on both Republican and Democratic leadership by doing something, that would have capitalized more on the working base that he had and won the election with, that would have, possibly upset the leaders of both parties, but might have gotten some popular support.
First of all, we obviously didn't support Mr. Trump in the election. We endorsed and actively supported his opponent. But after the election, they reached out and we reached out and we sat down and talked. And what I said to them at that time is that we'll judge you by what you do. If you do things that are good for working people, we will support them. If you do things that are bad for working people, then we will oppose you. And we immediately went into that mode. When he started attacking things like the beryllium standard, health and safety standards, coal mine standards, and those regulations, I had several meetings with the administration, told them the adverse and bad effect that that had on workers, showed them a position that would reverse that and actually help workers, make places more safe, or increase wages, and gave that to the administration. Unfortunately, in most cases, that wasn't taken. I think the difficulty that you had was you had two factions in the White House. You had one faction that actually had some of the policies that we would have supported on trade and infrastructure, but they turned out to be racist. And on the other hand, you had people that weren't racist, but they were Wall Streeters. And the Wall Streeters began to dominate the administration and has moved his agenda back to everything that I think they fought against in the election. And they're beginning to see that. The committee itself, the Manufacturing Committee, it never really was a vehicle to provide real policy solutions. In fact, the committee never met. He had a few of the CEOs over to the White House one time to talk about manufacturing policy, but we weren't invited to that, by the way. None of the representatives from workers, and I think there were 3 of us on the committee, were invited to that meeting, but it became sort of a way to get every regulation that they didn't want to have to deal with off the playing field, and that was their solution for helping manufacturing. And obviously, we didn't agree with a lot of that. And so the committee itself was never much of a functioning thing, and we would have gotten off of it anyway. But then we had the Charlottesville thing, and the president made what I considered to be a terrible statement. The next day he corrected it, and then the next day after that, he doubled down on the first day. And there were 2 issues. There was the symbolism of being connected with him, with that type of a statement that, as I said earlier, was a spirited defense of white nationalists, neo-Nazis, and other groups of that sort. And we were not going to be associated with that, so we made the decision after consulting with a number of my affiliates. We made the decision to get off the council and I guess, eliminate one area of communications into the White House. Even though it wasn't what I would call the most effective means of communication, it probably eliminated that. But we made the conscious decision that it was intolerable to have a defense of neoliberalism. I'm not, well, them too, but neo-Nazis and nationalists, white supremacists. So we got off of it. The chance for him to bring the two parties together, would have been the necessary predicate for that to happen. Would have had to been a strong agenda that he actually believed in, that would have been good for the country, good for the economy, good for working people. And I think he lacked that agenda. Take health care, for instance. He said he was going to bring health care for everybody, and we agreed with that. We think health care should have everything. But every proposal that the Republicans came forth and he supported would have eliminated millions of people from health care. There's not going to be a realignment when the policies that anybody espouses are so far away from the mainstream of American economic and political thought. And so I think that chance began to evaporate each time that he took a position that was so far away from American thought and American values.